Hi, in today's episode, we have Tarun Sardesai. Tarun is a former golf professional who realized his love for teaching early on in his career. His then coach, Donato Ponziano, I hope I've got that name right, gave him a push in the right direction, and since then has been no looking back. In early 2013, he set up base at the now Zion Hills Golf County to build a junior development program that's rooted in creating a love for the game and nurturing talent. Since then, the Academy has grown and reached greater heights with his determination to create an environment of excellence, which allows young golfers to live their life like elite athletes. So, welcome, Tarun, in today's podcast. In today's episode, golf is supposed to be a very sophisticated game. It's a rich man's sport. And when we got talking, you said that you would like to really break this myth. I would like to know a little bit more about this from you.
Thanks, Mahua. Thanks for having me here today. It's indeed a pleasure to be on your show. And yeah, talking about golf, no doubt, I think there's a lot of perception about the game that it's a rich man's sport. And yes, I wouldn't say that it's superbly affordable or very easily affordable, but it's not super expensive either. And it's a sport that you can kind of figure out, because if you look at a lot of golf courses today, like Zion Hills where I am, which is pretty much a public golf course. It's a pay and play facility. You don't have to always buy the most expensive golf sets or the most expensive equipment. If your child or if you are really looking at taking it up seriously, then maybe at that point you would really think about spending more money on it. But just to learn the sport, even a club like the Karnataka Golf Association, you can just walk into the driving range, find a coach, rent a couple of golf clubs and learn the sport. So, golf is like any other sport, only as expensive as you make it out to be. The problem with the perception, I think, has come from the fact that, people don't know. There is a lack of, I would say, knowledge within the city about the sport, and the fact that it's actually very, very accessible to anybody who wants to try the sport.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you come to this whole awakening about having an academy? Because in India, sports is really not taken that seriously in the curriculum, which I think is a very, very important part. You learn how to win, you learn how to lose. It's a very important part of character building. And the more I meet youngsters of today, I see so many people who are really struggling with so many aspects of their character. And sports is not given, I would like you to correct me if I'm wrong, but sports is not given the level of importance in a child's life the way it should be given. And also because I think we live in a system where many sportsmen, they don't earn well. And there's this whole perception that India, academics is a very big thing in our country. They understand careers like doctors and engineers, unless you're a celebrity sports person. And yes, golfing, like I said, it's a game of the wealthy. But how did you tackle this whole thing about getting people to really buy into your whole idea,
That's a really, really good question, Mo. And you think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's about the perception of sport today, along with the fact that, making a living is important. And, if you don't have a good education, or if you're not backed by a good education, it's going to be difficult. Because, there's no guarantee that you'll make it in sport. But growing up, for me, sport was life. Sport was my education as well. So I learned everything today that I know from sport. And I think the biggest thing that sport taught me was how to fail. And unfortunately, education system doesn't really teach you that anymore. It's all about getting the most amount of marks, getting the highest marks, and then getting into the best colleges. It's not about learning to fail. And so my life when I was a kid was all about sport. I went to boarding school, St. George's in Katy Valley, where there was a lovely culture for sport. And what I realized is that it was the environment of the boarding school that helped me to flourish. I was an average student before I went there, and I was average at sport. But when I went there, because the way I think the day was scheduled, we had really good time management. We had a routine that we followed from 5:30 in the morning till 6 in the evening. There was no time to be bored. And there was a lot of sport. In fact, you had to do sport whether you liked it or not. I think that was the great thing, which is not there today, I think, in a lot of schools in India today. So, for me, who was average, I began to flourish. I was on the cricket team, football, hockey, table tennis, badminton. And I did fairly well, and I captained a few of those teams as well. So I realized I was good at sport, but not only that, I began coming first in class. So my parents couldn't believe it.
So you mean you said you came first in class with the academics also? And
yes, and that's,
you are a rare combination.
I think it's just because we were able to manage time well, and I think it became about excelling in whatever you do, right? And that was important So, my principal, of course, hated the fact that I had started golf when I was in the eighth standard because he believed that I could become a really good tennis player. But golf happened also by chance for me because I developed an infection on my scalp. I had to come home for treatment. And I was bored because, being a sportsman, having to stay indoors with nothing to do, because all my friends were in boarding school. So I used to tag along with my dad to the golf course, picked up a golf club and then started playing and realized that my ego was hit really badly because golf was a little more technical than most other sport. And I couldn't pick it up that easily. So from being the football captain and the cricket captain and the hockey captain, now for a guy who could not hit a stationary ball, it became an ego battle. And then I would wait for every single vacation that I had, to come home and try and play golf during the vacation times. So I think the culture of sport that I went through really helped me to imbibe a certain amount of physical literacy. And what I mean by that today is most kids who go to school don't really become physically literate. They don't know how to run, they don't know how to jump, they don't know how to fall, catch, throw, because sport is not a part of the culture in their school. And that I feel needs to change. And for me, when I basically turned professional or played golf, it became easier for me to become good at it because I had that physical literacy. But then, of course, through my journey of golf, I realized that I wasn't good enough because I didn't have the right kind of coaching or the right facilities. I didn't know how to go about my day. Basically, I didn't have a mentor. And that's what I think a lot of players are missing today, and which is why I set up the academy, because our academy is not just about the technical side of things. It's about mentoring these kids to be the best that they can be. Now, what that is, we don't know. A kid could be the best at golf, or the best that he can be in golf, and he could be the best player in Asia. So we don't know what their true potential is, but it's about getting kids to harness that, right? And the other thing I picked up in boarding school was discipline. I think that's the most important thing today that a lot of kids lack. A simple thing would be how cell phones are killing our kids. Technology is killing our kids because they're on the cell phone pretty much, 8-10 hours a day, and it leaves it leaves them with a buzzing mind without not able to focus. They're always anxious. So I wanted to change all that with the academy. And when I moved away from the city, I thought it was the best place because Zion Hills Golf County is a beautiful facility, a golf course with the promoter George, who I think aligned with my vision. And when I went there, a lot of parents said, Tarun, that's too far away. We're not going to be able to bring our kids over there. I think only about 10 or 11 kids followed me there. But today, one of the parents who actually wasn't happy about me moving there, his son is the national champion. And he swears by that place. So I think what we created there was this whole environment of excellence, and we created a culture of sport and health and an active lifestyle. And for me, the biggest takeaway is not just learning to fail, but also the fact that I want these kids to leave my academy, whether they become professionals, make a career of the sport, to be active in life, so that in the future, their kids will watch them playing tennis and hockey and football rather than sitting on an iPad watching a show on Netflix. So the environment of excellence is important because today all the kids are rubbing shoulders with the best players in the country. They're eating the right food. A simple thing like sugar. People don't realize how big of a performance inhibitor sugar is. And we've taken that out of the equation in the academy. Now, no doubt kids will cheat. They'll bring their chocolates in. They'll bring, sugary stuff in. But, we have a good system there with the wardens doing regular checks in their rooms. So we can confiscate, things like biscuits, or we confiscate things like chocolates. And then you might say, you know what, Tarun, how does the kid survive in that environment? Because the kid loves sport. And when a kid loves sport, he will be out there for 5 hours a day practicing their craft because he just loves to be there. If it's a kid who's not, I would say, who doesn't have an intrinsic love for golf, he's not going to survive in our academy. So I think there's a natural filter in our academy. If a kid is really not intrinsically in love with the sport, he really won't last.
So, how is the filtering process? I mean, because there would be a lot of children who probably would be joining in, and midway into the whole system, they might just think that they're not, probably cut out for, because sports is discipline. I have huge respect for sports people because I think I can't be one, because you got to treat your body like it has to work for you. We
Absolutely.
take our body so much for granted. So, has there been any incident in which there's a child who's gone through,
Oh
counseled,
yes,
and
oh
you've,
yes, of
so
course. I
please
mean,
share with us. I'd love
yeah,
for
we've had a
people to
lot
know.
of
Yeah.
instances. Like if I talk about my top player at the academy right now, who's the current national champion. I mean, he came in thinking he was a cat's whiskers, and then suddenly realized the environment of discipline was difficult to be in. right? Because he hadn't been used to rules and discipline. We've had some real issues with him, but it's actually made him a better person even today. And then we have other instances where kids come in and say, I want to be the world's best player, but they don't realize the sacrifice that goes into becoming the world's best player. Now everyone's got talent, right? But does everyone have the mental perseverance and fortitude to actually go through this journey with us, one, and then realize that his or her life is going to be like this for the next 20 years? That's hard to take sometimes. So when I say the environment itself filters out people, most kids realize through this journey that the calling is not professional sport, right? And it happens automatically. It's a natural system where they say after 2 years, you know what, sir, this is not my cup of tea. And on the other hand, you will have kids also like my coach, my eventual coach, who told me the truth. You need someone to tell them the truth, and only a mentor can actually do that. Because when I went to my coach, Donato Ponziano, at the age of 23, telling him that I wanted to be a great professional golfer, he took one look at my game and says it's time to quit, right? But nobody else had told me that, and I was really hurt. My ego was hurt. My dreams were shattered. But he looked at me and he says, "You know what, Tarun? I've been interacting with you a lot." And he said, "I think you can be a great coach and a mentor." And I didn't even listen to him. I said, "No chance." I said, "I want to be a player. I've come to you to become a player, and you make me a player." He says, "Tarun, I won't lie to you. You're wasting your time." And that's what kids also need today. So unfortunately, you'll see kids finishing college, finishing their 12th standard and taking up golf seriously. It's too late sometimes. And somebody needs to tell them to move on. And I've taken up that job as well, because it's my job to be fair to the kid. And it's not easy telling the kid that, hey, you know what, you're late now, right? Or time's up, you got to move on. So every kid needs that mentor, I think, more than anything else. And there's so many kids today who can talk to their coaches differently from how they talk to their parents, right? A parent can never coach their kid. You know that as a parent yourself, right? So you need an external influence. And today, I think as a mentor, I've been very successful because, there are parents who call me when their kids are not eating the vegetables, and all it takes is one word from me to say, you know what, I'm going to be upset if you don't do that, and they're eating the vegetables. So it's a lot of responsibility also on my side, because I know that I can shape these kids' lives. They're going to look up to me. They all look up to me, which is why for me, I have to also stay in shape. I have to work out in the gym with them. I have to be on the playing field with them and garner their respect, so that when I tell them to do something, they know that I follow that as well.
Walk the talk, like you
Walk the
said.
talk,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's about walking the talk. And so, to give you an example about discipline at our academy, and we have had a lot of kids who've been scared away by the fact that we don't allow them to keep their cell phones with them. But trust me, the kids who don't have their cell phones with them are sleeping better, they're focusing better, they're doing better in school as well, and they don't even realize it. They still want their cell phones, but they only get it for 30 minutes a day to talk to their parents. And there are some kids today who don't even want it. They say, I don't need it.
But I
because-
completely agree with you, actually, Tarun, on this, because when I'm a parent myself and I look back, my son had it's not this that I had pressure with him, but he didn't have a phone, I think till class 11th. I think that's when he started his tuitions, and he just had a very basic phone in which I could just call him, and he had no access to any of these electronic gadgets. And I think that also helped him, focus with his academics, which he was,
absolutely. I think
and
in a large
you focus in whichever the field you choose to be in.
Yes.
But when you talk about coach and mentoring, I just think that for children, when they are young and they are of this very impressionable mind, if you have someone who you can relate to, and I've seen that for students, when they go into class and there's a teacher who's encouraging you, and you start liking that subject much more than what you do with a teacher who's playing the role of being this tyrant teacher. Because I think in India it's just been this whole system that we've given so much of importance to positions in life.
You're absolutely right.
And it really saddens me, because there are so many kids. I just believe that they're just this empty canvas, and you can shape them the way you want to shape them when they're young. And yes, everybody's born with an inherent talent, for some stuff. Like I'm completely talentless when it comes to numbers. But then when I look back, I also think it's because of the fear that was put inside me, for numbers. The fear that I had with sports, because I was in class 1 and I came last, as I told you, in one sport. And that humiliation never wanted me to try my hand back in sports ever again. So, when you say that you were a coach and you were a mentor, and that's what your mentor told you, what are the things that he saw in you for you to, for him to say this about you? Because 23 is very young to recognize the qualities of being a mentor.
Yeah,
So
I
share
think
that with us.
because he was a great mentor himself, I think he saw that I had potential, right? Just like you see potential in a golfer or golfing talent, I think he saw some coaching talent because he and I used to have a lot of talks about technique. And he says, wow, this guy understands the technical side of the sport as well. So why not let me push him into something that will help him make a living? Because he said, Tarun, you can't take grass or sand from the bunkers home and feed your family. He says, you've got to start earning money. And the rate you're going, it's going to be very, very hard. And the opportunity cost is going to be very, very high. And when it comes to coaches and mentors, I completely agree with you because I think the reason why a lot of golfers came to me is because they loved me. It wasn't so much the sport, and I'm very proud to say that I actually was able to mentor them into loving the sport as well. But
Because they trust you.
absolutely, and one of the things with the kids is I don't judge them. They could do anything, and they know they're not going to be judged. And for me, and our tagline at the academy also is finish strong, which basically gets them to understand it's about the process, not the outcome. It's about the journey, not the destination. So let's say a kid has a bad round in a tournament, score wise. All I do is when we focus, or my coaching team focuses only on how were your processes. Did you drink enough water? Did you exercise before the round? Did you have good body language on the course? If you did all of these things, you played great. You are not your score, right? And so kids, when they usually go home from a tournament, it's sometimes difficult because the parents want to know how they performed. A parent usually is not going to ask, hey, how was your body language? Were you happy on the course? They're going to say, hey, how did you play? What was your score? Where did you stand? So along this journey, we're also educating parents. And I think, I've done quite a good job of that at the academy. I think all our coaches at the academy really talk to the parents also to get them to understand what the child is going through and how to keep things positive. A simple question like why? When a player comes home after a bad round, if a student comes home with a 75% score in maths, there's a question as to why. It's the most negative statement today that you can even think
Completely.
of.
It's the most toxic thing that, and I think we as, kids of the 80s, who studied during that time, I, when I look back, I'm shocked at the resilience that we've had because we've always been asked like, why? We never addressed, the trauma that we may have faced at a certain incident. And I think it's amazing. But tell me something now with these kids being away, and they're like, as you said, that you're not going to have their cell phone and you're not going to, and I think it's a great thing, discipline, which I also feel that when it's probably done with love and affection, because discipline to me also can be a very, very stern word, which I get very scared of because, in the name of discipline, a lot of people do sometimes misuse the authority or the power that they have, and little children are gullible. So are there counselors also for you to talk to in your academy? I mean, I'm sure there are people who manage the diet. Are there also counselors, or are you the one who talks to them?
Glad that you brought that up. And that's actually quite interesting that you mentioned that. And I think we are the best counselors. The coaching team are the best counselors. The fitness team are the best counselors because, all of us know these kids inside out because we're living with them, we're training with them, we're eating with them, we're working out with them. It's like one huge family over there. So I think if any kid has any problem, he knows he can talk to anybody out there on the team. I think we don't really need counselors, if you ask me, because the kids have a very healthy relationship with all our staff. And our staff know all the kids and they're always motivating. And because all our staff members are into sport themselves, they're all obviously people who've been into sport and fitness, they know what the child's going through because they've pretty much been there themselves. Everyone's gone through failure. And the kind of failure I went through, and I can see what I missed was just having that mentor to tell me, what, it's okay. It's okay to fail, right? Don't be afraid to fail. And that is why what
So
we're
I
doing
can
at the
see
academy.
some emotion when you talk about, about you having failed. What is it that triggers the memory, for...
If you look at my career, I was very fortunate to have parents who said, you know what, Tarun, this is your life. Do whatever you want. I wasn't pushed into education, or you have to become a doctor, or you have to join my business, right? And I'm a college dropout. So after 2 years of doing college, I realized that I just didn't want to do this. And my parents allowed me to actually drop out of college in the US, come back and just play golf. But of course, they said very clearly, this is the little bit of money we've got for you. We've put aside for you. from here on, it's and I've had some really good, amazing experiences because I remember Mr. Dilip Thomas of the AVT group of companies saw my talent and came to me and said, you know what, I'll sponsor you for the first 3 years of your professional career. And it came out of nowhere, right? But Dilip, of course, he's an amazing guy and he's sponsored a lot of players. So I was really fortunate to have met the most amazing people, along the way. And I've always believed in paying it forward. And my academy is my way of paying it forward rather than paying it back to Dilip. For me, it's now creating a system that will produce champions. So, being a mentor, being a coach, while it's really hard work because we have to deal with the kids, their idiosyncrasies, the parents who want the kids to perform, the academy, the business, the entrepreneurial side of things. I love each day. I wake up each day and I'm ready to.
It's a challenge every day, like
It's a challenge every day, and I just love it. And people say, "How do you work 7 days a week?" I mean, you should take a break, Tarun. And I keep looking at them and saying, do I really? I love what I do. I love, I get withdrawal symptoms if I'm away from my academy for more than a week because I want to be with the players. And I think in 2018, when one of my players, Viraj Madhappa, became the youngest ever Indian player to win an Asian tournament, I was there, and I have never had goosebumps. I've never felt the hair stand on my hands like that. I was close to crying because it was huge emotion of all the hard work that everyone had put in to this kid and the kid himself. Because when he came to us in 2016, he was ready to give up golf.
Oh dear.
And we turned him around, right? And I'm very proud of that. Aditya Ashok, who's playing the Olympics, I'm very proud to say that I nurtured her from the time she was 7 years old till the time she was about 14, right? And I know that it's the discipline and the instincts that I instilled in her which have got her to the Olympics today. And she's actually in second place right now with just 2 days to go. In fact, when she was just 9 years old, I got her to write her dream on the wall. And she wrote, I want to be on the LPGA tour. I want to be the world's best player. And she put it on a piece of chart paper and stuck it on a wall. And those are the things that have seen her to where she is today. A good example of what we did with Aditi was, as a mentor, I told her to be fearless. I said, never fear failure, right? Don't be afraid. Whereas her dad, I remember we were on the golf course one time and he told her, you know what, play a little safe on this hole because, there's water over there. And I pulled him aside and I said, you will never say that to her again. And today, she is the most aggressive player out there on the golf course, which is why she's actually has a chance to win us an Olympic medal.
But golf is considered to be a safe game, if I'm not mistaken. And why they say it's for the wealthy, because they say that, they are competing with themselves and it's a sport where you're not really going out there and.
True. I don't disagree with that. It's an aggressive sport. I don't think it's a completely safe sport.
So I'd like to understand a little bit about the aggressive part.
Golf, because obviously you're hitting a stationary ball, right? The difference in other sport is it's reactive. A tennis ball is coming at you really fast. A cricket ball is coming at you really fast. The football is a moving sport. Golf, you can have all the negative thoughts in the world before you hit that shot, or you can have all the positive thoughts in the world, right? You can think about your girlfriend, the fight you had with your wife, all kinds of things can come into your head, right? So, it's a difficult sport in that sense because the mind comes in a lot, but it is aggressive as well because today golf has become about the power. It's about hitting the ball really far, hitting the ball aggressively, having aggressive, I would say, a game plan on a particular hole because you're strong. So today, the way the players are playing it, if you look at the top tour players, the PGA, LPGA tour players, you will not see one player out there who has any fear of anything. And that is the most amazing part. So they're aggressive from the word go because they have no choice anymore because everybody is aggressive, right? If I play safe on a particular hole, I'm probably going to lose out to the rest of the field. So today, and Aditi's in second place right now, she needs to continue being aggressive because if she lets go, she's going to be out of chances of a medal. So golf is a very aggressive game for sure. I don't think too many people are playing safe anymore. And, as a career opportunity, I must tell you, I did some research about 4 or 5 years ago of the top 11 players over the last couple of decades. They have brought in about $60 million in prize money to this country. So
Rolex is one of the brand endorsers, right?
Absolutely. Rolex, Volvo, you have BMW.
Yeah, you have BMW. You have all the...
Absolutely. And you have to be good, though. You have to be good. So if you're mediocre, you're probably not going to have a great living in golf. So for me, at the academy,
mediocrity works in any field whatsoever.
Absolutely.
I mean, unless
you can get by, right? In golf, if you're mediocre, or in professional sport, it's tough to get by.
Yeah, professional
it's very tough
sports, you cannot. Absolutely, you can't. You appear to be somebody who's like really with it. I'm sure you have some fears. What would the fears be? I mean, if you were to put yourself in that place. So you said you have to be fearless. But we human beings, we do have fear, at a certain level. What is the fear that
You know,
you have,
I'm
Tarun?
not an entrepreneur, right? So we're essentially a startup. We've had money struggles from day one, and we continue to have money struggles. So I think, yes, there is a lot of fear because I have a family, I have two kids, I got to feed them. I can very easily stop this journey and go back to my regular coaching days and make good money, right? But that fear is overcome by a thought of, hey, what we can achieve here. And today, all I'm waiting for is that somebody to see this and say, Tarun, let me support you. Right? Because I am very confident that's going to happen. I don't know when, right? Because then sky's the limit. Because then we can create a system which churns out Olympic medalists year after year. We're not, today, if you look at who's behind Aditi, there's really nobody behind her, right? We need to have a consistent system that's churning out players year after year. So, we have 10 Aditis out there, 15 other Anirban Lahiris on the PGA Tour, right? And so, I think my biggest fear would be if our country doesn't wake up to this culture of sport and the culture of supporting and funding the development of sport. In golf today, we don't have anybody who's funding the development. Everybody's funding players who made it, right? But what about that next gen?
So in the academy, are there kids only who come from elite backgrounds, or do you also have a few children?
That's a very, very good question.
come up?
And our academy is not very cheap because we have the best teams out there of sports science, nutrition, golf coaching. But we've done our part because we've taken about 5 or 6 kids from underprivileged backgrounds and we've funded them, even though we can't afford it. But what I have done is very simply asked for money. I've gone to individual HNIs and I said, can you give me a lakh? I've gone to 10 people saying, can you give me a lakh rupees? I've got these 3 kids or 2 kids. I just need this money to fund them. And, they've been more than generous. So that's how we do it. We're kind of hand to mouth right now. But, we've got these kids. And when I look at those kids, they're awesome. They've got amazing amount of fire in their bellies. But I have to say something else that, I always thought that it was kids maybe from lower income backgrounds will have real intrinsic love and fire in their bellies. But I'm so happy to say of the 40 kids in my academy, 90% of them come from affluent backgrounds and they all are really fired up. It's amazing that they've given up their comfortable lives in their cities. They've come here, they wake up every morning at 5:30, they go to sleep at 9 o'clock with a full day, 10-hour days, 2 hours in the gym, 5 hours on the course, 3 hours in school, and they love it, right? So I think that intrinsic love for sport is great. I mean, we've been very lucky to have a great bunch of kids at the academy. And, I'm just looking forward to the day where I have enough money to fund maybe 50 more players. Because if you told me today, Tarun, go pick up talent from this country, I'd have 100 players in my academy in no time.
So tell me a little bit more, Tarun, about your kids. I mean, you've got 2 boys, and are they also taking up? Your 5-year-old, is he also showing
Yes,
interest?
absolutely,
Yeah?
absolutely. I think kids they learn by watching.
Yes, absolutely.
So, my
yeah.
5-year-old kid asked me the other day, and, I've got a wonderful team of coaches. So I've entrusted this 5-year-old kid, his name is Drona. I've entrusted, him to them. And the other day he's asked me, he calls me Dadu. He says, Dadu, aren't you the best coach in the world? I said, yes. He says, why aren't you coaching me? And I said, oh, wow, you really want me to teach you? He says, yeah, you teach me. And, I went with him on the course, played 4 holes with him recently. It was a joy to watch. And he's a natural athlete. In fact, both my kids, Touchwood, are natural
So
athletes.
they've taken after the dad.
They've taken after the dad. I think their mom also was quite an athlete because she was a hockey player in her
Oh,
schooling days.
wonderful.
But the beauty is, I love the fact that they're embracing an active lifestyle, and this is what I want for all our kids. In fact, I want to change the school system in India, where if a kid goes to school, he's doing, let's say, 4 hours of education, but at least 2 hours a day of physical literacy training. Teach them how to throw, how to catch, how to jump, and soon you will see kids emerging. Maybe by the time they're 14 years old, can take up any sport they want and they'll excel at it. Right. So I'm very fortunate to be in Zion Hills and be in that environment where my kids have 200 acres of area to play with. Because if you look at it in cities today, there's barely a playground available for kids. In fact, there's a waiting list, if you want to go and play football. And that's why I think moving to the outskirts of the city, moving to tier 2 cities, and I think that's where the bulk of our sportsmen are going to come from, not from the big cities or the big metros. So I think if there are academies that are going to open, like the JSW Academy in Bellary, which I think is producing a lot of good players, a lot of athletes who have won medals this year, are from that academy. I think that's what we need in the future. And we need to have a blend of education and sport. We need to have an education system that supports sport. And that's what we've set up at the academy, because when a kid misses class or misses school because of a tournament, they come back and start where they left off. And the teachers are not saying, oh, you missed school, you have to make up. They're saying, wait, how did you do in the tournament? You did well? Great, come on, let's go. right? So you need the teachers also to change the attitude, because today most teachers, they want results, right? And they're under pressure to get, let's say, 90% results, right? But what if we had a culture of teachers saying, awesome, if you want to go for the tournament, go for it. I'll take care of you when you come back. Imagine how much confidence that kid is going to go to that tournament with, right? And that's what we need to do. So I'm hoping the new education system has something like that. But I think we definitely need to have a training system for teachers of sports people. And that's what our company, ProZ, which is the company that's actually put together the education program for us, is actually doing. They're kind of addressing this whole system of allowing sportsmen, musicians, people who want to do something different to also get a good education.
I think you've raised a very, very important point, and I don't think I've even thought about it, about physical literacy. I mean, we only talk about literacy as far as subjects of academics is concerned. Physical literacy is not even a word that I'd heard till I met you today. And I'm sure, you know what, there would be a lot of schools who will soon be opening up for this, because I think what is missing is in the regular schools where this is not given this sort of importance that should be given. Because, I mean, when you talk about children, especially tier 2 towns, because when I look back at my own childhood, I grew up my formative years in Shillong and then in Delhi, you know, but the way I played in Shillong, you know, because we were just playing, we had no access to a television or anything, or I read, you know, or I painted. And in the evenings, you had to play. Your mother pushed you out of the house, and you know you fell, you bruised, and you came back, and it's so important to start inculcating these values that come in with being on the field. And thank you so much, Tarun, for being in today's episode. And I look forward to talking to you once again. If you could just share with us a little bit more about the Academy, the name, if people were to get in touch with you, is there a phone number? Is there an email ID? If you could share that, it would be wonderful.
Sure. Thanks, Mawa, for having me on the show. I think, I do tend to be very verbose because I think I'm passionate about what we do.
That's why you're here. We're both
absolutely.
very passionate individuals.
Yeah, so it's great. It's been a great podcast. I think I'm really looking forward to hearing it myself. Because oftentimes I tend to listen to myself and I say, "Wow, I said that. Wow, I need to kind of learn something from that as well." But yeah, I think we are the TSG Academy, the Tarun Sardesai Golf Academy. We're actually India's only fully residential golf academy with education, where we've got a good blend of education, sports science, and golf all together on one campus. And I think the problem that we have addressed is the fact that you don't have to worry about getting a good education while spending enough time on your sport. If you do want to contact us, the number is 9986801888.
All right.
I'm looking forward to maybe doing some more work with you. I know we can talk about a lot more, not just about the academy, but I think about sport in general. And I think physical literacy in itself is a huge subject, because physical literacy is very scientific. How you train a kid from the age of 6 to 12 to become athletic and have athletic ability is so scientific. And if I can give you a small example about that, every kid has windows in their life where they're called windows of trainability. So if, for example, a boy, his first window of trainability for speed is between the age of 4 and 7. If you get a boy at that age to run between the age of 4 and 7, run playing football, run generally, he's going to be a fast runner. But if you miss that window, that boy will never be a fast runner. So I know that Usain Bolt grew up running. He must have been running to school, running to the grocery store, running to play his football match, and that is where he got his speed from. So I'm hoping that India opens up someday and brings in this wonderful literacy program into the schools, and then I don't think we'll have to worry about a medal in the Olympics. We'll have tons of them, and I know that we will probably face up to countries like China, maybe even the US in terms of the.
Oh, I'm very, very optimistic, because I think even this time it's such a proud moment for all of us to see the number of medals that have come, and the number of people who are doing so well with sports. And there are films that are being made, because I think in India, films really have a huge impact on the audience. And there's been Mary Kom, the film that was very, very popular. And there have been so many more films. There was Bhag Milkha Bhag, Milkha Singh, the film that Farhan Akhtar did. And I'm very, very optimistic, like I always say. And I do believe that physical literacy is one of the most important things for people to not even have depression, because games do not allow you to mope. Games
Absolutely.
allow you to be mentally healthy, and which is a very important part, which many families or many homes, they forget to address, because they themselves have not had that culture.
Very true.
And yes, and thank you once again. And
and just one on a note to leave, The reason why India is winning so many medals this time is I know that what's really improved are the coaches and the mentors. I think that's the thing that's really brought on or got the best out of our players this time, whether it's hockey or wrestling or even golf. I think what's happened is these players now have access to great coaches and mentors. And I hope that this trend continues. And Mahua, thank you so much, for having me on the show.
Thank you so much, Tarun. Thank you. To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services. Find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course, all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are Moody Mo Awaz Podcast, where Hatke is hot.